If he chose, why is he pleading to God to take the cup away from me?
Well, because it's a very intense and stressful thing to be going through. And
For a
then
God?
so-
It shouldn't
Yeah,
be a problem
well, I
for God.
mean, it shouldn't be a problem for
Shouldn't be, yeah, it shouldn't be.
Oh my gosh.
So why Christians have been locked up in prison today?
Yeah. So what we are doing here is we are trying to use our own human moral understanding. And that's the reason you were unable to answer that analogy I gave of the court. Because you and I both know that it's unjust to kill your innocent son for a convicted murderer. Do you agree?
That's the thing. I don't have a static answer.
I think you do, but you just don't want to admit it.
No, I think
If I ask any moral person, okay, whether he's a believer in God or a disbeliever in God, when they hear this analogy, they will without a doubt say that this is unjust to kill your innocent son for a convicted murderer.
but I mean
The reason you are hesitant,
thing
it just shows that you want to conceal this
it's not a
this truth because it goes against your narrative.
You're getting this wrong, man. It's because Jesus still chose to do the thing, man. He still chose to do it. He didn't run away from the cross.
Regardless, it's still unjust.
He would have wanted to, but basically, Jesus chose to still be the lamb, man.
You know what? Even if that analogy, if I say your son willingly wanted to die instead of that murderer, what would you say? Let him go die?
As a human, as the man that I am, I probably wouldn't know.
Why no?
Well, because I mean, it would feel wrong.
Why is it wrong?
Well, because we think that, why is this man getting away scot-free?
Because he's innocent. Say it.
But then,
Because your
that
son
our
is
own-
innocent.
but
Even if he
that is
willingly
our own-
said, I want to go and die instead of that murderer, you know well that with the moral values that you have been brought up with, you will say that it's unjust, unfair to kill your innocent son.
We would, correct.
Exactly.
But you
Finally
see-
it comes out.
but-
I had to
but you
literally
see-
squeeze it out of
It's
you.
all right, bro. So, but you see, that is sort of taking something which is supernatural and divine and putting it on a human perspective.
Bro,
And-
there's
and
nothing
saying-
supernatural about
and
killing an
saying
innocent man.
About killing an innocent
Yeah,
I
there's
mean,
nothing supernatural about it.
There was some supernatural things which happened from that. I mean, for instance, you literally had like tombs open and you had an earthquake. You had the curtain of the temple.
Yeah, nobody
actually-
saw that.
There was
Except
What do you
Matthew.
mean- What do you mean nobody
Except
saw
Matthew
that?
wrote it.
Okay, so about.
Did you know about the zombie things?
about the-
Nobody else
about
wrote it
the-
except for
yeah,
Matthew.
so no-
One gospel from the four.
Okay, so yes, but that's only in relation to the people walking out of the tomb.
No, but I want to
In
know, why did the
relation-
other gospel writers not write it?
I don't know. But the
You know what it is like? Imagine, it is a huge scene. I'll tell you why. They wouldn't have missed it. This, where the saints rose from the graves, the saints who were dead, they resurrected from the graves and they went into the town. Exactly. So if only Matthew saw it and none of the other gospel writers saw it, we can say one of two things. Either Matthew just made it up, or the other gospel writers were completely blind of this huge phenomenon
Or
which
there's
took place.
The third option, or there's the
What
third
is that?
option, which is that the other writers didn't feel as though that was important enough. to
Really?
actually mention
Saints
it.
rising from the
Yeah.
graves, not important enough? But it is important for what?
Matthew.
Whether Jesus came to Jerusalem on a horse or a donkey, that's important? Seriously?
I don't know.
Because they write about what Jesus rode into Jerusalem.
Yeah, I mean, didn't he ride on a donkey?
He did.
But you said a
You know, some
horse.
of that, because in the Old Testament, there are prophecies, he actually rides on a colt. Yeah, kind of a
'Cause
horse.
The colt is a donkey, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's actually a horse. Yeah, so some of them, they said that he rode on both because they wanted to make sense of the Old Testament prophecy where it was actually a horse. But in this, he's riding a donkey. So how will they marry up? He rode both of them. Can you imagine Jesus sitting on two animals? I mean, it's a mockery of Jesus in the Bible, really.
But you see, you could also sort of say that, it would have also been a symbolic thing, right? Like,
No, he
it
was
doesn't
literally
have to
riding
be
a donkey.
I mean, I'm talking about the Old Testament prophecy is what I'm talking about.
No, they are not. But what's the point of a prophecy if it's symbolic?
Well, the thing is that prophecy, I mean, even Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 13, he says that when we prophesy, we don't prophesy in full. It's kind of like looking at a dirty mirror. We don't see things exactly
Then why did the
like
New
that, right?
Testament writers say on both animals then? If it was only symbolic.
You said, could we actually look that up? Sorry, you said that. The New
We,
Testament
look,
writers
we can
said-
look it up all, but
Okay.
the thing is, if it was not literal, they wouldn't have interpreted it as literal, would they?
Well, I mean,
Because that's what they try to do. They try to marry up
But-
what really happened in the time of Jesus with what was proclaimed before.
But
Yeah?
but the gospel said that he was riding on a donkey, right?
Yeah.
That's what the gospel said.
The reason I brought this up is to show you that there are things which are not really very significant, but to me a miracle where a lot of saints, a lot of saints resurrect from their graves and walk like zombies into the town. To me, that would be a huge thing. And the fact that all the other gospel writers missed it shows us one thing, that Matthew probably just made it up. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you is that why would God need a son? Why does God need a son?
So I'm gonna do a little bit of a, what is it? There's a word for this. What is it called? Conjecture. There we go.
Conjecture, speculation.
Yeah. So a little bit of speculation could be this, because Matthew, when he wrote his gospel was primarily written for the Jews, wasn't it? So that was who Matthew's target audience was.
When you say Jews, you mean by race or by religion?
I'm gonna say by birth, whatever.
Can't be both.
What do you mean?
Because
birth.
Yeah, it can't be both. The reason for that is because the Jews rejected Jesus as the Messiah.
Well, I mean, the thing is that back in those days, again, this part of history I'm not entirely sure about, so maybe you might know more about this part, but to be a Jew, you had to be born a Jew, right? Back in those days.
Even today.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
this is a modern thing where they started to convert as Jews. The reason for that is because if you look today, a majority of the Jews, they come from Eastern Europe, places like that. And they actually look down upon the Jews who are from the Middle East because of the color of the skin.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of racism going on there.
What is your name, man?
Hashim.
Hashim.
Yeah. Hashim.
Hashim.
Yes.
Hashim. What does that mean?
Well, it has different meanings. So it could be one of the prophet's grandfather's name was Hashim.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were talking about something. You were talking about So going back to what Matthew was doing and saying. So a part of him sort of specifically, because I mean, that's one reason why he starts with all the genealogies was to actually show the Jews how important it is that actually Jesus did come from all of these kind of like prophets and everything, right? So that's sort of one reason why he starts with that.
By the way, it wouldn't work.
Pardon me?
The genealogies wouldn't work. The reason for that is because the Jews took their tribes from the father, and Jesus didn't have a biological father, so you couldn't have had a genealogy.
But you can do that because there's also
Bro, you can roll your eyes. If you're going based on the Jewish tradition, you cannot just skip it and say, oh, it can happen. You can't, because Jesus did not have a biological father. So there's no question of any lineage to David.
So one way to be able to kind of like correspond that with science or whatever is by actually saying that God would have taken one of the seeds from Joseph and put into Mary. Yeah, man.
Then the miracle of Jesus' birth is not a miracle. Because he would be the father. His father would be Joseph then.
No, but you see, his father was also Joseph.
No, it wasn't a literal father.
As well as God. It was
wait. When you adopt someone, you don't become their biological father.
He was the begotten son. He was the begotten son.
Begotten of whom?
Begotten of Joseph.
Seriously? So you don't believe in the virgin birth? Seriously?
I do believe in the virgin birth. Yeah.
So how can she be virgin if the seed is of Joseph?
Well, it can still be a virgin because you will still require the egg and the sperm, right?
Whose sperm? When you are virgin, whose sperm?
It could still be Joseph's sperm because
he doesn't understand the meaning of virgin, does he? Are you married, bro?
No.
No wonder.
I'm not
Okay, go and find out what a virgin means, because a virgin is someone who hasn't taken any seed from anyone. Okay?
I mean, I thought that a virgin
That's a virgin.
Someone who hasn't had sex.
Yes. So how can Joseph's seed come into her if she hasn't had sex?
They didn't have sex though, man.
So how did it come from? Where? Artificial insemination back then?
Sure, man. I mean, God or whatever. God put in the.
God doesn't need a reason for.
The egg or whatever.
God, in the case of Adam, did anyone's sperm or eggs play a role?
I don't believe so.
Exactly. So if God can create Adam, then He can create Jesus without a father.
So okay.
That's called a miracle. And that's what the Quran says actually. The similitude of Jesus is like that of Adam. Yes? That Allah created him from clay, and He said to him, be, and it becomes. So all God needs is the command. Okay? And He can create. He doesn't need any sperm or eggs or anything in the case of Adam. In the case of Jesus, He did not need a sperm. Okay? So the reason it's called a miracle is because you cannot explain this scientifically or any phenomenon.
Okay, so let's go with the other side. So one of my sides was a miracle side, right? So which was let's say that hypothetically we didn't go based on that Joseph thing. Well, it would still be considered. He'd still be considered Joseph's son because Joseph still raised him, and Joseph still.
Yeah, not a biological son.
So
somebody can raise someone as an adopted son. There's nothing wrong in that, but based on the Jewish. No. If you understood And by the way, go and research this. This is homework number 4 for you.
All right, let's look it up, baby.
The tribe in Judaism is only based on the biological father. Okay? Go and look it up.
Actually, no. Hang on. No, because so Joseph. Okay, so these
It's still stuck on Joseph's sperm?
Yeah. So wait. No, but you see, there's sort of typically kind of two theories with the. There's kind of two theories behind the genealogy of Jesus. Because I mean, in both Matthew and Luke, there's two genealogies, right? And then so.
And they're both wrong.
But you see, that's.
Shall I tell you why they're both wrong?
But that's the thing.
Like I said, if you do not abide by the principle on which the Jews determine their lineage, their tribes, which is, like I said, primarily on biological father, okay, not some, stepfather or something like that. It's based on the biological father. So if you look at the genealogy, throughout the genealogy, it says the son of this, and so on. Those are all biological sons. The only exception they make is right at the end. In one case it says son of Mary, the other says son of Joseph. You see what I mean? Why this special pleading, which is a fallacy, as you know.
Why does what, sorry?
The special pleading?
Special?
It's a fallacy, it's a logical fallacy. So you make a special case, so it fits in your narrative.
I hear what you're saying, but you see, the thing is that from the actual tradition of the sort of Jewish things or whatever.
No, it's not.
Literally.
I'm telling you, this is your 4th homework. Go and do it and come back.
I've looked into this. Jesus.
Show me a single person who traces the tribe from other than a biological father. Go on. Show me anyone from the history of Judaism.
But that's the thing, is that Jesus was an exception, though, man.
Exactly. It's called special pleading. It's a fallacy.
You're saying special bleeding?
Pleading.
Pleading.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I've never heard this term.
It's a logical fallacy. You need to learn about logical fallacies. Thank you, brother. So what I'm saying is, look, this is again an exception to the rule, which is the Jews in Judaism trace the lineage from the tribe from the biological father. Anyway, the question I wanted to ask you earlier is, why does God in Christianity require a son?
Why does he require a son?
Yeah.
I do not know.
What do you think? Do you think God Almighty requires anybody, let alone a son?
I guess...
Can we just move a bit there because it's getting too loud? Let's move a bit back. Thank you. Welcome to Speaker's Corner.
I guess, if I'm to sort of try to take my human perspective, which I wouldn't rely as kind of the word or anything, I'd probably say that God actually placed... He took a part of himself and...
Part of himself?
I know this sort of sounds a little whack, but it's...
By the way, this is a heresy, if you believe that.
That God took a part of himself?
Yeah. It's called the heresy of partialism.
Of?
Partialism.
Partialism.
Yeah. This is your 5th homework.
Yeah,
it's on camera, don't worry. No need to make notes.
Where is it?
It's going to be posted on DawahWise on our channel.
So
you can... DawahWise, it's written there.
DawahWise. DawahWise.
Yeah.
What does DawahWise mean?
Well, Dawah means to invite people, yes, in the Islamic, to the Islamic message of Islam. And wise is self-explanatory.
And wise means what, sorry?
Like wisdom.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yes.
The meaning of Dawah is invitation, basically.
Yeah, invitation to the message of Islam.
Normally, a father needs his son for a certain reason.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand from this gentleman. Sorry, what was your name again? I forgot. Matthew, yeah. How could I forget that? A gospel name.
Father would want a son,
Yeah.
just like Zechariah prayed to God to give him a son.
Yeah, but you're a Muslim, brother. I want to know from him.
No, but I'm giving
I don't want. Yeah, no need to put it in his mouth. He's more than capable of responding by himself.
of having a son.
You said you don't know. Okay, let me rephrase the question. Is God independent?
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Really have to define the word independent?
Well, I mean, in the context which you're asking,
In any context, is he independent?
is anything ever independent? I mean,
God, God is independent.
I mean,
of anything and anyone.
I could say that I'm independent, but then I'm still kind of being held under by certain things, right?
No, but you're not independent. We know that. You did not. You did not create yourself.
I mean, I didn't create myself, correct? No.
So your own existence is not independent.
I mean,
forget about everything else.
I'm just saying, to say that something is solely independent in and of itself. I mean, there's almost always other influences which can
For
sort of
God,
make something.
God is someone who is absolute. He's almighty. Yes. Why would he be dependent on anyone?
I feel like God chose to sort of make himself someone who actually chose to love and want humans to have that connection with him, right?
No, but are you saying that he's dependent on love?
Is God dependent on love?
We moved from there, they came here.
Sorry.
Dependent. Look, do you understand the term contingent?
Continuous? Is that the same thing?
Contingent.
I
Contingency.
explain to me, yeah.
So contingent. Oh man. Let's move again, guys. This is Speaker's Corner. You been here before?
This is my first time.
All right, welcome to Speaker's Corner. You'll see a lot of crazy people here shouting unnecessarily. Yeah. I hope this is far enough. Yeah, let's go. So yeah, contingent means dependent. So for example, the universe is dependent on obviously God, because the universe wouldn't exist without God. Do you believe the universe was created by God?
I mean, you say the universe is dependent on God.
Yeah, of
so,
course.
I mean,
It means for his existence.
if something is created by God,
Yeah, so it's dependent.
I mean, that has to be dependent on it.
Exactly.
So, I mean, let's say if I'm created by my father, does that mean that I have to be dependent on my father?
You are dependent on your father. You wouldn't exist otherwise, unless you were like Jesus, miraculously born.
For the initial creation, correct. But then in terms of, let's say, like you growing up and you becoming, your own independent.
Brother, it's a simple concept. Any creation depends on its creator. Any creation.
To have been made, correct.
Any creation.
To have been made.
Yeah, everything is made.
We need to make sure we have that
Okay.
distinction there.
Do you know anything other than God which was created?
Anything other than God which is created?
Sorry, which is not created. My apologies. And do you know anyone other than God Almighty who is uncreated?
Not that I can think of.
Good. So everything and everyone who is created by God depends on God.
Everything and everyone that is created by God is dependent on God?
Yeah, for their existence. Just like you wouldn't exist without your Father. Yes, all this creation wouldn't exist without God.
Hang on, let me just mentally get that around my head.
Oh, you can try.
I would say that okay. So you were right in terms of God, but in, let's say, terms of a humanistic perspective, we don't have to be dependent on our parents, but in terms of creation, in terms of us being created, we do, yes.
No, not only us. Like, take the example of a chair.
Okay.
So the chair depends on the carpenter because the chair was created by the carpenter.
Sure. Yeah.
But then the carpenter itself is dependent on the raw materials, on the trees. And the trees themselves, dependent on the sun and so on.
Okay.
So there's always a cause and effect if you see anywhere in the world. Yeah? Look at any aspect, whether it's in the cosmos, on the earth, or even in the seas. There's always a cause and effect going on. Okay? Now, this is the question I asked you earlier, is God independent or is he dependent? My question, in other words, you can frame it as, is God caused by anyone other than himself? Is he self-dependent?
Okay, so okay. I
Yeah.
see what you're saying. So now that I understand you, so if I'm explaining this right, so what you're asking about dependence, and you're saying that can God exist whether or not we exist? Is that kind of
No, is God dependent on anything for his existence?
for his existence?
Yeah.
I would say not. No.
Okay, good. Is Jesus dependent on anyone for his existence?
I'd probably say the Father, because the
Good.
Father is greater than him.
Right. So who is independent from the two?
Did you say who is independent from the two?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
From the Father and the Son, who is independent for their existence? Of their existence.
Who is independent of their existence? I'm sorry, I'm not quite understanding.
Okay, once again, the Father doesn't depend on anyone for his existence.
Okay.
Do you agree?
Okay.
Are you sure?
I don't know, man.
Which-
You got me going back and forth.
Which part are you not sure?
Like, I mean,
Existence.
one part
For the
of me-
Father to exist,
Okay,
is it dependent on anyone?
So I personally like to sort of take more than one point of view, because I don't like to sort of stick my flag in the flagpole and sand and say,
You have
yes,
to.
this is absolutely right. I'm right with this point of view.
In the case of God, you have to. You have no
because-
other choice.